Hey guys, it's Bill from Linden, Tennessee. So I thought I'd do a little update on what I've been up to this weekend. And I didn't do a whole lot through the week. Um, I just didn't feel like it. I don't know. I'll get more into my little 3-point hitch situation back there. But I just kind of got bogged down on that, about trying to figure out how I'm going to make it work. I just kind of got bogged down and like I just didn't know what to do with it or where to go. I had some ideas floating around in my head, but through the week I couldn't really do anything with those ideas, so I didn't do anything with it. And I knew I needed to do something with this plow, but man, you get home from work and it's just like, I don't want to do this, so I didn't. So I just kind of started on it yesterday and started doing the plow. And what I needed to do with that is from the factory, that arm there and that arm there just weld directly together, and I believe it would have come back to roughly here on the original tractor. It would have come back to roughly here or so, maybe a little bit further back, I don't know. But anyway, it would have just pivoted about midway into the tractor. But obviously on this I can't do that because I got a big old differential transmission in the way. So I welded this thing all together, and here's a little video to show you how that went together. So I'm working on fabricating up the brackets for this plow. I needed to extend the arms out. I'm going to have them pivot back here on the frame, as I've already talked about. And then I needed to extend them about 14 or 15 inches or so. And this video is just kind of to show you how I've got this all set up in here, being held in place so I can tack it pretty solid, and then take the whole thing down and weld it together. But I've got all the butt joints are chamfered so I can get a good solid weld in there, good penetration, because this is going to be taking quite a bit of force theoretically if I use it. And then right there you see that one's just sort of cut. That's where I want the bend. That's where I wanted the bend to be. I don't have a way of bending 5/16 or even 1/8 inch really. So what you do is you just take your cutoff wheel and you cut through about all but 1/16 of material, and then you just take and bend it by hand, either on a vise or just on the side of the table. And this was just a matter of, I had that little 1/4 inch piece clamped to the old white bar there, and then I had this piece clamped to the bottom. This was just a matter of going back and forth, bending it a little bit more, hitting it with an angle grinder just to kind of grind off a little bit of length, a little bit at a time, back and forth until you finally get it to fit. And well, here it is. So, but I just wanted to say, don't throw away your drops. That little bitty piece of 1/8 inch, that little piece of 1/4. I got some little pieces of 16 gauge. I got all kinds of stuff. Don't ever throw these drops away. These are precious to fabrication. You use them to make shims, use them to make spacers, everything. Use them to hold parts so that they stay flush. But yeah, don't throw stuff away. Well, there's a limit. I don't know what the limit is, but I'll show you what my mess looks like. So yeah, this is my don't throw away part stuff. Oh, this is my tape measure. Cool. Yeah, so I mean, just buckets of little stuff, little drops here and there. But at some point, you go, okay, okay, we need to thin this out a little bit. But anyway, all right. Well, there you go. That didn't actually take that long. Like I had this one sort of all tacked together. All I did was come over to the other side, sort of duplicate it. Those two angle pieces are surprisingly close. They're not the same, but they're pretty close. These pivots back here, these are just temporary. These are just 3/4 inch chrome rod, and I drilled and tapped a 1/4-20 into the middle of it, and then likewise drilled and tapped a 1/4-20 into the frame there. And I've just got these sort of screwed in there in temporary like. What I'm going to end up doing is I've got some 2-inch round stock here that I'm going to turn this in down to 3/4 and keep this OD 2 inches. Then I'll do the same thing, 1/4-20 right down the middle. Put a little piece of all thread in there. My all thread 1/4-20 is actually a bolt that I cut the threads off of. And then just screw that in there, and then just run a weld bead around it. And I will, you see there's some play in here. What I'll do is I'll just trim these down. I'll just face these off until they're the correct thickness, so that it just kind of fits in there. It doesn't give me too much side play. I want a little bit. I do want a little bit of movement just to make this thing easier to get on and off. But that's what I'll do. I started to do this on my little lathe, but you gotta realize the limitations. It's just a little bitty dude, and it only takes about, I don't know, maybe 10,000ths off at a pass, and even that it struggles with. So I'm gonna take these to work, and I'm gonna put it on the big lathe and turn these down in about 10 minutes. The cool thing, I think the cool thing is, since I'm using the winch to raise and lower this, I can use the winch to install it. So all I needed to do was just sort of scoot this over in its rough position. And likewise, when it's outside, sitting in the grass, I'll just drive the tractor over it into its rough position and connect the winch cable up to it and come around to the side with my little winch control here and use the winch to pull the tractor to it, and then all I've got to do is set that long end on my little standouts there, set that long end on my standouts, and then come up front and pick the middle part up till it's pretty close. And if it's too close, I can just back the winch off a little bit, and in this case it was just fine. And then you just go ahead and you tighten it the rest of the way, and it draws it in. Then you drop this little dude down, put that little dude up, and that locks it in there. I need to find the spring mechanism that actually holds that. Yeah, because I don't know, that's kind of sketch. I need some mechanical way to hold that up. But anyway, that's it. That's job done. And then to lower it, of course I can do this up in the cockpit too when I'm sitting on the seat. Lower it. Bam! It's kind of fast. I do wish it was a little slower, but I think it's really cool I can use the winch to install this thing. The only kind of issue I'm going to have is, since there's no down pressure using the winch, there's no down pressure on this plow, it will kind of easily bump. It will, if it hits something, it'll just kind of go over it. So the plow itself only weighs about 54 pounds. That's how I weighed it. It weighs 54 pounds, so there's not a whole lot holding it down. If I had a linear actuator, which I'm starting a collection of these silly things. If I had one of those, then I could actually apply downforce to this, and I could actually move dirt with it. I could remove these little pads. These little pads are for snow removal. I'd move them little pads out of there, and then use the cutting edge to actually move dirt and actually grade something, or do the driveway, or hell, I don't know. Anyway. But that's kind of what I did today. I sort of thought that was going to take a hell of a lot longer than it did. But, yeah. And what else? The other thing I'm working on is back here. What have I done? Let's walk you through what I've already done. So, obviously, I need a way to raise and lower this. This is the little kit that I got off of eBay for $150 or something like that. It was just a fantastic deal. It came with the top link. It didn't come with this top pin, but it came with just about everything else. It was a really, really good deal. So I need a way to raise and lower this. I went out to my little Kubota outside and measured its range of motion. It goes from about 4 inches off the ground to about 21 inches off the ground. And I'm not sure, well, I probably could duplicate that, but I'm not going to really aspire to duplicating that. If I can get it to go from about that far, which is maybe 6 inches off the ground, to that high, which is about 18 inches off the ground. If I can do 12 inches range of motion, then I'd be pretty thrilled with that. And I'm trying to come up with a way of doing it. I've seen some guys online, what they'll do is they'll put the linear actuator out here, and then just push up directly on well, these are the deals that are supposed to raise and lower the arms. And then these would normally have a rod that goes in there. So they'll just put this rod that goes in there, they'll just hinge that rod, and then the linear actuator directly on this right here, and that raises and lowers it. And then they'll just tie these two lifting arms together, left and right. And that will work. That would totally work. But I've got all this room back here. So plan A was to use another linear actuator. But I'm sort of limited on space. I've only got about, well, I figured out I've got about 12 inches. I need a linear actuator that's anywhere from 11 to maybe 13 inches long. And I don't really know how long of a length to make it. So I thought, well, heck, why don't I just get a winch? I could just get a winch, a cheap winch from Tractor Supply or Harbor Freight, something like that, and put a lifting arm on the drum of the winch, and then that would be like a rotary actuator. So that's what I did. I went to Harbor Freight and I picked up a Badlands ZXR 2500. It was $90, and I went about cutting the drum in half. I took this apart, cut the drum in half, and then machined this down so it would be a surface that goes in this bearing here. Took this piece out, scooted that together. This is several hours in the making, and scooted it together, and it fit perfect. And I'm like, well, all I gotta do is just sort of turn this down flat. So I did that. I turned that down so it's perpendicular to the center of this half drum, and then all I gotta do is just put like a, you know, cut a piece of cut an arm out, like out of aluminum, because I can weld this. It's aluminum. So I cut an arm out, and then, you know, as that rotates around, it'll raise and lower the arms, and that'd be great. And it fit, and it's perfect, and it was nice and compact, and yeah, that's all I had to do. And then I thought to myself, hang on now, how fast does that drum turn? Well, it turns out it turns really, really fast. If it's pulling a winch line, it's not going that fast, but if it's just doing, if all you need is no more than half of a rotation of the drum, really probably a third to a quarter of rotation of the drum to raise and lower the thing, it turns really fast. And I put a little mark on here and piece of tape, and then counted, and it takes about 2 seconds to go all the way over there from one side all the way to the other. So if you could imagine the arms of that 3-point raising and lower from all the way to the bottom to all the way to the top in less than 2 seconds, that's silly. So I was really annoyed with myself because I ruined a winch. Like, because after I cut that off, now I can't use it as a winch anymore. But then I just put it all back together the way it was, and all I got to do is just get me a piece of aluminum, turn it down to that distance there, bore a hole in one end of it to go on this surface, and just turn down the other end to go in that one, and just put that in there and weld it in, and it'll be fine. And I can just put the cable back on here and run it on, and I'll have a winch. I didn't really want a winch. Don't exactly need a winch, but now I have one. But the cool thing is I didn't murder it. And the other cool thing about that was, and it's almost worth the $90 or $100 that I paid for doing this. First of all, I drove the Jeep to Harbor Freight, which is about 92 miles away, and it made it. That's the longest I've ever driven it in one drive, so I was thrilled that it made it. So that's good. I learned that. Then I also learned that that's not going to work. So I went back to plan A, and you should always stick with plan A. And I went on eBay and just ordered a linear actuator. It's like $70 or something. Was it even that much? But it's got a 1,350 pound push force. So, and it's short too. So hopefully, where this little arm is, I'll have the rod of it connect here, and then I'll make a little bracket for the back. I'll weld it between this piece and that piece, and it'll sort of drop down, and it'll pick up the back of the actuator, and then that'll be strong for the back part, and then it'll push and pull on that. This will probably, I'll probably not have these in bearings. I'll probably just have this rod solid mounted, maybe run a bracket up from this plate, make a different plate out of thicker steel, and then just weld some gussets onto that. And then this will be solid mounted, and then I'll have an arm that extends out that way. In the Cub Cadet, it's about 10 inches long. So it'll extend out that way 10 inches, and it'll extend out that way 10 inches, and pick up the ends of those. And then have a collar between those two that'll weld them together. And then whenever I figure out where that needs to be, and I figure out where this needs to be, then I can weld this to that. And it'll just be one solid piece. and then this rod will theoretically just slide out and I can move that one solid piece. So I think that's what I'm going to do. I kind of had thought about maybe putting a key in this rod here, and so this piece would be keyed to the rod, and then my lift arms would also be keyed to the rod, and this rod would be transmitting the torque. But I think it'd be much stronger to do it the way I just described. Maybe not. I don't know. I could always key it the first time and see how it looks, and if I don't like how that looks, then I can just take the keys out and weld it all together. There's always that. So anyway, that's what I've been up to there. Yeah. So, and it's like 3 o'clock. It's 2:30. I thought this was going to take much longer. It's 2:30. I don't have my actuator, and I'm gone as far with that as I can. So it's about 75 degrees. It's probably about 80 degrees outside. It's absolutely gorgeous. So I think I may just go sit on the porch and be lazy. That sounds like a good idea for a Sunday. But anyway, that's what we did this weekend. Thank you, as always, for watching, and we'll see you next time.